Welcome to Business Legal Lifecycle TV, the live TV show all about the legal aspects of your business to help educate you on complex legal terms in an easy to understand manner, to help understand why you need to do certain things in your business from a legal point of view, and to help you develop a plan for the future. Our mission at Business Legal Lifecycle is to help empower all small to medium-sized businesses around the world to get access to legal advice so that they can help build their communities and make the world a better place. Did you know that any business owner is on average 7 months away from losing everything? That is the average time it takes from a successful business to fold when an aspect of their business is not set up correctly. Have you ever wanted to get legal advice but didn't understand what was going on? Do you feel like there is a divide between lawyers and their clients? Then this TV show is for you. It is all about empowering you and your business with the knowledge and tools to ensure that this doesn't happen to you. Business Legal Lifecycle TV delivers a twice-weekly show focusing on the legal aspects of your business. At lunchtime on Mondays, we present Fast Fix Monday, a quick 5 to 10 minute show that will give you some actionable steps to consider for the week for your business. And at lunchtime on Wednesdays, we present our in-depth show of between 30 minutes and an hour, where we go through complicated legal aspects of your business in a simple to understand, plain English manner. And whether that is through educational pieces or interviews with experts in their fields.
Afternoon everyone, and welcome to Business Legal Lifecycle TV. I'm Craig Mason. I have with me as always Jeremy.
Hi everyone.
Excellent. So today is one of our interview episodes here at Business Legal Lifecycle TV, where we interview someone in the industry this month, which is the month of March in 2018, and we're looking at selling your business, so phase 13. And so we have an exciting guest that Jeremy did an interview with. His name is Warwick Peters from Ray White Commercial. Now, this is, if you've been tuning in to Business Legal Lifecycle TV for a while now, you might remember Warwick. He was in show 16. So feel free to go back and have a look at Warwick there. He hasn't changed much from show 16 till today. I think he's still got a lot of excellent things to say, and is really experienced in the industry. He's an accredited business broker and sales and leasing agent. As I said, he works at Ray White Commercial, and that's at North Coast Central. We've known Warwick for a while. We've done a fair bit of work with him and with his clients, and we know that he's got a lot to add in this phase and a lot of advice to give about preparing your business for sale. So Jeremy, you did the interview with Warwick. Do you want to have a quick couple of words about what you might get out of it?
Yeah, sure. So Warwick's someone, as Craig said, we did an interview with him in show 16, which is phase 5, protecting intellectual property. And the reason we had Warwick on back then was about the importance of protecting intellectual property for the sale and the future sale of your business. Today's interview is more about the actual selling process and what you need to, do to sell the business. So you're going to get out of it lots of great tips about what to do for selling your business, the importance of putting some things in place to sell your business early on, and also we go through the future and what Warwick sees in the future. And finally, we didn't do it in the first one with Warwick, but we take Warwick through the quickfire round, so he's got some great answers to the questions there. So look, I think this is a really fun interview. I hope you get a lot out of it. If you want to go back and view the previous one, go to businesslegallifecycle.com.au/016 and you'll be able to see Warwick's previous interview. But please enjoy today's interview. Welcome, Warwick, back to Business Legal Lifecycle TV and our podcast.
Thanks, Jeremy. Great to be back. Very, very nice to be your official second term respondent. Is that right?
Yeah, you're the first one to actually come back for a second time. So congratulations.
I don't know whether that means I'm any good or maybe you run out of...
No, it means you're really good, and that you've got lots of things to talk about. We mentioned in the intro that last time we had you on was in phase 5, protecting intellectual property, and we were talking about building up the intellectual property for the sale. So today's more focused on the actual sale of the business itself.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. So for those people who haven't seen the previous show, do you want to tell us a bit about you and the business that you're in?
Yes. Well, I do professional business broking as opposed to what I call the run-of-the-mill business broking. That means I'm accredited. I've been to a professional college and accreditation, certainly through Ray White, and Ray White does that externally through the Australian College of Professionals as accredited business broker. But my background brings me to that phase. Not only is it by education, but it's also by experience. And I've been in the financial services and investment industry for many, many years, starting straight out from university, going into that game and remaining at that till I moved into this, going back some 18 years ago now, when I moved into this professional business broking game. But it is a professional occupation, not a part-time. And some people regard business broking as something that you can do without the qualifications and the experience. It doesn't happen for them successfully. So.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So you did a lot of, you did the stockbroking, those kind of things. How do you think that's helped you with what you're doing now?
It's been essential in identifying my breaking down and analysis, and I guess the assistance to determine where profitability lies and where paths that perhaps take you down an unprofitable outcome. I used to run the Norwich Group on a national sales and distribution level, Australian Unity, and also as national sales level for financial services provider Bridges. They're a financial planning operation, and in those groups there were various operations, franchises, outlets, connections that one had to go in, assist, break down, analyse, see what they're doing. Their rents were too high, their staff were too many, they were paying too much, all sorts of breakdowns from a financial perspective to analyse what they're doing to try and convert that, as well as keeping them on the right path, but convert that to a profitable outcome for them. So I did that for many, many years at a national level. So it was pretty easy for me to walk into this type of role and do it for a local business operation, or at least to analyse and determine whether or not it's profitable and whether it's on the right path. So that's general background for what I've been doing previous life to what I'm doing in the current life. So
excellent. So obviously you've got a lot of experience in advising people and doing business sales. What's the one thing that you see that people get wrong with business sales? If there was one thing you could fix, what would that be?
Probably most people get the timing expectation wrong.
Right.
When people come to sell, they think, well, let's put it on the market today. Let's get it sold in 2 weeks' time, and let's get our money and off we go. And the reality of timing never falls into their expectation of what timing actually is. The timing has a number of different functions. One is how long it takes to put a business onto the market. Can be anything up to 2 months in preparation, analysing the accounts, determining how it's going to be marketed, and making sure they've got everything documented and recorded and their accounts are all in order. So 2 to 3 months from the time they say to me, I want to sell my business, to actually putting it just into advertising and taking it out to the market. They think it's 2 to 3 days, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks. The other thing about timing is, when is the best time to actually put a business on the market? And a lot of people think, oh, I can put it on any time of the year. Well, really the first quarter of the year, probably just after Easter, is about the best timing, because you're not far away from the annual accounts. So you're leading up to that with progress accounts, but you've still got a good 4, 5, 6 months of run up to Christmas or before Christmas to do the investigations from a buyer, the due diligence process. And even that can take anything up to 6, 8 weeks, maybe longer, for them to complete their due diligence. So you want everything done before Christmas, start early. People put their business on at September, they've got very little chance of getting a successful sale. It usually goes cold over the Christmas break while people are saying their lawyer, like you, is on holidays, their accountant's on holidays, their investigation process has been put on hold, and they go cold because they just can't keep the momentum up as a buyer in investigating it, and the seller gets frustrated. So timing is the biggest situation, or the number one problem with most people's expectations, the number one evil, if you like, in order to satisfy in getting it right.
And so how do you go about setting that expectation? Do you sit down with them and go through exactly what the process is so that the people can understand what you need to do and why that's going to take the extra time?
Yes. If you said to me, Jeremy, if you said to Warwick, Warwick, I want to sell my business, I'd say, Jeremy, the process, do you understand how much time this is going to take?
Yep.
And you'd probably say, no, explain it to me. And I'd say, well, it's going to take me probably anything from 6 to 8 weeks to get an understanding of what your business is about, and then another 4 weeks to get it written and prepared and put it onto the market. So we're going to spend the next 3 months. Then if your accounts aren't quite ready for end of year, then we're going to have a bit of a delay there while we make sure that the progress accounts, in other words, we've got last year's end of year accounts, we want to do the next 9 months or thereabouts for those to make sure we've got quarterly success, and we're continuing along in analysing those compared to the previous year.
Yep.
Once we then hit the market, we then take anything up to another 2 to 3 months to get a successful buyer process underway. That's what I regard as a buyer that's genuine, that's had 2 or 3 investigations on the business, and is now down to the due diligence process.
Yep.
And that due diligence process, as I mentioned, can take 6 to 8 weeks on top of that. So if we look at that process, we've gone best part of 3 months putting it onto the market, another month and a half trying to get the buyer process underway, and at least another, say, month or thereabouts to get it to a due diligence
Yep.
underway. So we're probably up to about 6 months to sell a business if everything goes well.
Yeah. Okay.
I said put it on at the beginning of the year, not at the end of the year, because at September, that 6 months process won't be ended until March.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So let's move into the topic of selling a business. As you know, this month on Business Legal Lifecycle TV and our podcast is all about selling businesses. It's phase 11 of the Business Legal Lifecycle. So what, from your perspective, are the keys to selling a business for the best price?
I think if I was selling my business, I'd want to make these points to any potential buyer, and it'd be a simple to understand business. In other words, it can't be complex. You don't want to have 3 or 4 companies making various products or contracting work and complicating it. You want one consolidated company, one consolidated corporation producing the services or the product that you have, and making nice, easy to understand profits. Hopefully it is profitable. So uncomplicating it, making it very simple to understand for the buyer. Otherwise, you just get lost in the process. Probably the next point that's probably very, very important would be having a great set of accounts. Now, by that I mean having accounts that are a display of the sales, the profitability, and a fair estimate of the tax deductions based on what the business should sustain as tax deductions, not what you as the owner want to keep as your personal tax deductions. A set of accounts that have to be reversed with add-ons to put back into the business what the business wouldn't necessarily spend. So having a good set of accounts is very, very important, because that's the first thing people will say after they look at the business and the profile on it being advertised. Send me the accounts, I want to read them. So if the accounts don't look any good, they don't go any further. Potential for future growth is another area. If I'm buying a business, I want to know that it's got future growth. I'm not just buying it for what it is at the moment. I want to see how I could expand it, or where I might be able to expand it, and what markets I could expand it into. So that's another very important aspect. Can that business be expanded or grow substantially above where it is at the moment?
Yep.
It could be a little coffee shop and you could lease the place next door, so you could expand it because that's currently vacant, and you've got great potential because then you can have double the size if that's what you needed. But there's lots of other examples. That's a very basic example. And the other aspect of what people were looking for, what would be appealing if I was selling my business, I'd try to make it easy to manage. Yep. Because a lot of businesses, certainly at the upper end, have to be fully managed or able to be fully managed. So if it's a complex operation and you're the only dedicated party that can operate it, then you're really pushing uphill to get that business sold, because once you leave, you have difficulty in maintaining or sustaining the momentum of the business, because you're the knowledgeable entity that's just picked up and gone, and no one else can replace you. So having it easy to be managed and operate is very, very important. And probably the other aspect of selling a business, or even as a buyer buying a business, is it in a market that is going to be a future growth market, or is it a declining market? And declining markets are places like news agencies.
Yep.
You wouldn't buy a news agency business because that has been declining for years. You wouldn't buy a business that was in decline in any particular form. You'd want a new market, like electric cars, for example.
Yep.
That's a growing business. Diesel engine vehicles are a declining business. That might not be the case now, but if you were gearing up and spending multi-billions of dollars for a diesel engine motor vehicle building business, you wouldn't certainly set it up in France, because they're cancelling all new vehicles that are diesel engines in the next 5 years. I believe they're going to try and eliminate them altogether. And electric cars are the growth industry. So that's an example of where you'd want it to go. Definitely to make a lot of money and to be a growth business in a rising market that's more acceptable for future growth than current markets.
Right at the beginning of your answer to that question, you mentioned about people trying to sell businesses that aren't making any money. Are they possible to sell? Like, is that something that you can actually do? And who would be the buyer of a business that's not really making a profit?
Again, it comes back to whether it's a declining market or a growing market. But if it's a growing market, and we just got into the electric car business, you and I, Jeremy, set up a workshop and a manufacturing business, and we're going to sell electric cars.
Yep.
It probably wouldn't make any money for a few years. But if we captured our market share and certainly got a good foothold, in 5 years' time, we could be multi-millionaires.
Yep.
Whereas if you got into a business that wasn't making any money at the moment, but the future didn't look all that rosy, and there was no market growth, the potential was declining, then you'd say, no, don't touch it with a barge pole. It's just not something you want to get into. Very difficult to sell. Like news agencies at the moment, they really are struggling to sell them. They're more or less not even a buyout for the fixtures and fittings. It's almost a case of, look, I'll take over your lease and leave everything and walk away.
Really?
Because that market has no growth whatsoever.
Yep. All right. So, well, we talk a lot about, thinking about what the seller wants when they sell the business. What, in your experience, are the things that a seller wants from the sale of the business?
Probably the first question I get is, what do you think it's worth? So in my response to that is, I would suggest they always want more than it's worth. So that's
that's human nature, though, Warwick. Everyone, it's like with property. Everyone always thinks that theirs is worth more than what people actually want. And I think that's a good lesson for people to know that.
Exactly. But, buying and selling, it's the age-old problem, isn't it? Everyone wants to get as much as they can for what they're selling and buy as low as they possibly can when they're buying it.
That's right.
Most people say to me, I want a quick sale. So the first thing they're going to want is they've made their mind up, they've decided to sell their business. How long is it going to take? I wanted to do it quickly. 6 months. Oh, God, I've been in it for so long now, I just want to get out.
Yep.
And the hazards of trying to make a quick sale are numerous, not to mention the fact that you're going to bugger up the process along the way. You're going to truncate everything. You're going to try and force the sale, and you're going to reduce your price. So the impact of a quick sale is a reduced price, substantially reduced price in many cases, or a bundled sale, I should say. So the other thing they want is no complications. Oh, look, I want to sell my business, but look, I don't want any complications. Here's my accounts. This is what it's all about. Can you sell it?
Yep.
And the good thing about a broker is, if they're professional, they'll be able to take those complications out of the game and handle it. But there are some complications leading up to preparing the material. So yes, there are some complications. So no complications. Well, there are some, but I try and eliminate those. And then most of the other responses I get from sellers are, can you make sure this is not going to cause me any difficulty? I don't really want to have complications in the end process. I don't want to have any difficulties in selling it. I just want a clean sale. So although complications revolve around difficulties can be made up from the broker or the way in which you structure the sale with the buyer.
Yep.
If you don't understand how that sale should work and what you foresee as a problem coming up, you end up getting caught in the middle and you end up with all sorts of legal implications, as we all know. So
Yep.
no difficulties, no complications, quick sale, and give me as much as you can get.
They don't want much, do they?
No, they never want.
Well, let's as we talked about before the call, since that your last time that you're on, we started doing some worksheets. And one of the things that I wanted to focus in with you today was some practical things that business owners should do to start setting up their business for sale. Because you and I have talked about this before, that everyone at some point is going to exit their business. Whether or not they want to just do it in a month or it's going to take 6 months or 2 years, they need to start getting some things in place right away. So can you give us some practical things that business owners should start doing today to start setting their business up for sale?
Sure. If you've got a reasonable, we're talking reasonable sized businesses now, not little mums and dads type businesses. So most people buying a business, your market is, in realistic terms, about 25% of the buyers want to take it over themselves. 75% of the buyers want to have it fully managed and buy it and sit back in the background. So be a helicopter sort of owner and hover over it, but don't want to participate, don't want to land on the ground. So you've got, in essence, 3 times the number of buyers for a fully managed business. So I say to owners, if it's not fully managed, in many cases they're not fully managed, have you got anyone that's ready to take over your role that you've brought up through the ranks, second in charge, whatever, 2 ICs? Can we put them into that role at any time? Are they a long-standing employee with all the experience? If they say yes, I say, great, let's tick the box. If they say no, I say, well, how difficult would it be to find a replacement for yourself and your wife or the people that are running this business? How difficult would it be to find a replacement? How much would it cost? And have we got the documentation to be able to show someone that particular role?
Yep.
So if we can make that process simple and easy for a buyer to understand, then they will buy the business, probably on the condition that the owner stays there for 6 months while we train up and bring in the new management team.
Yes.
But as long as they understand the costing of it and the ability to be able to perform the duties and a good job description, all written about the business and how it operates, then as long as that's all, let's say, in the can, then we're right. If it's not, very, very difficult to sell that business to 3/4 of the potential buyer market. We've only got people that want to take it over themselves, and then only specialists in that particular role, so it makes it even harder again.
Yep.
So you can see what I'm saying. You can sell it to anyone if it's fully managed. You can't sell it to anyone if it's not. It's very, very difficult.
Yep. So your thoughts are get someone in there to manage the business ASAP, at least, or bring them to a point where they might be able to be a manager of the business, so that you can step away if you need to.
Yeah, potentially just get it in order so it can be fully managed, or have people ready to take it over, or explain how simple it would be to have it fully managed for the buyer, and we can market it to anyone.
What about financials? So like getting their financials ready as well.
Yes, the next step in that would be have a great set of accounts. The reason I say a great set of accounts is they have to look good. They have to have at least 5 years of growth. If it's a cash business, we don't want to see cash that went under the table and came out the other end. Costs them too much money. It's stupid. So we want to see all the cash having gone back into the business. We want to see it properly managed. We want to see all the expenses clearly identified. We want to see profit and clear sales growth. And in line with that sales growth, we want to see profit growth.
Yes.
So in some cases, sales can grow 50% and profit can grow 5%, which is ridiculous, because if you're making 30% on your money, then you should be making 30% on the new growth, unless the industry is taking a downturn. So all those sort of factors impact adversely on a business or positively on a business. So a great set of accounts, good reporting facilities there so we can read all about it and know where it's going.
Yep.
And the other thing is to document the job processes within your business.
Right. Yep.
So we need to know who's doing what, how it works, and what it's all about. So if you document it, your role, the other employees' roles, how that business works, everyone can understand it and they know how to manage it and run it, and they can digest it a lot more readily than if they have just got me and the owner trying to give them 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Much They can sit back and read it themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted to do a deeper dive into the cash thing that you mentioned before.
Yes.
It's actually a topic that Craig and I talked about in one of our Fast Fix Monday shows earlier in the month. But can you just explain to the viewers and listeners what the consequence of taking cash is on the, as you see it, on the eventual sale price of the business?
Absolutely. If a business, and let's inflate it all up a bit. Let's say a business, car wash, for example. Car wash has a lot of cash going through the machines. No one would know whether it's being put back into the business or not. Really, you can disguise it. So if we had $400,000 of sales through a car wash and we only declared $300,000 worth of sales,
yep,
that means that we are pocketing $100,000 cash. And the owner of that car wash would think, gee, this is great. I've got $100,000. I don't have to pay tax on it.
Yep.
Well, at the moment, under a company structure, they would have to pay 27.5 cents on the dollar tax. So they've saved $27,500. They've saved 10% GST, so they've saved another $10,000. So in effect, on that $100,000, they've saved $37,500. That's wonderful. So they think they're really well off, having saved $37,500 on the $100,000 they have pocketed.
Yep.
Now, I look at it, I get the business figures, and I say, that $100,000 you put down there, I could get you 3 times or up to 3 times that as a profit in the sale. So if you put that $100,000 back into the business, when I sell the business, the car wash, I could get up to $300,000 for that $100,000 you pocketed. So in reality, they've, in this particular situation, saved 37.5 and lost $265,000
yep.
in pocketing that 100,000. So it has a dramatic impact. That's just the obvious part. The other part is that it makes the business less attractive because a business that should be making $400,000 is only making 3. If the average business only makes $300,000 in that industry and you're making $400,000, everyone wants to buy your business.
That's right.
If the average is 300 and you're making 200, then no one wants to buy it because I think it's hopeless.
Exactly, and banks don't like it either, do they? But yeah, from a financing point of view, banks just won't take into account the cash figures.
No,
yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
Jeremy. You can't take the cash into account. No one can verify it, and no one wants to put it down in writing anywhere. And if they do, they've kept a little, secret book, and it's all to be real. It's all BS,
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's just important to reiterate that point, a number of times, because some people think, as you said, they think they're being clever, but they don't realize the long-term impact that's going to have on their business.
That's right. Well, in 3 years, if I pocketed 27,500, well, in this case 37.5, because I'm robbing the taxman of GST, and it shouldn't be a case of it's something to be just regarded as it's acceptable. It's fraud. It's fraud. The taxation office, and it's fraud against the GST because you should be declaring. But apart from the fact that you're breaking the law, you're saving 37.5. Now, if you do that for 3 years, you've collected, big deal, you've collected $105,000.
Yep.
And shown on your books $100,000 of less profit each year.
Yep.
$100,000 less profit. Now, in 3 years' time, when we sell that business, I can get you up to $300,000 as an extra sale price, as a multiple of the profit, because that's what nearly all businesses are based on, is the actual multiple of the net profit of the business. And $300,000 compared to 105. You've risked all sorts of revenue investigations from the tax office by taking the money.
Yep.
You've downplayed the value of your business, and you've made your business less attractive to sell because you're not making as much profit as perhaps the more honest players in the market.
Yep.
All for the sake of pocketing 100,000, and you've blown 300,000 on your sale price.
Yep.
Definitely not worth it. And people don't understand that. It's just something that they'll learn as they go, but it takes a long time to get that back into the business. And if you go and pump that back in, it'll take you at least a year to 2 years for any buyer to come in and believe that you actually pumped the business, put the money back into the business, because they'll think you're just inflating it.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen people put money into the business to earn $300,000. They'd actually make sales. They actually put cash into the business to make $300,000. I put $100,000 in.
Yep. Yep.
And it's not real. It's coming out of their pocket.
Unbelievable.
That's how manipulative the market can be. So always be honest, always put it all into the business and run it the way you should. And then you've got nothing to fear, and you'll make a very generous profit when you do come to sell it. So I can't stress that enough. And as you said, speak about it again. You can speak about it time and time. Point that's probably disregarded by small to medium businesses every day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we see it all the time. So it's something that people need to be aware of. That's why we bring it up, and just one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it with you when you raised it. So let's move on. I think we've made our point quite well there. Let's talk about why people should use a business broker. So a lot of people think they can sell businesses themselves. I'm sure some people can, but why? What does a business broker bring to the process for a business sale that will increase the price and make the whole process easier for the seller?
I think certainly in the better quality businesses, professionalism is what sells a business. It's understanding what it is that you've got to sell, but it's more importantly understanding what the buyer wants to buy. So a seller will only understand in most cases what they've got to sell. They don't understand what the buyer wants. So it's a bit like trying to match up two clean panes of glass and have them sit together beautifully as one, or we've got a lot of rubble and grit and all sorts of other objects in between, and we can't quite get them to close up, and we don't get a perfect match. What the broker does is understand the seller's needs, talk to the buyer, understand the buyer's needs, and try and make that perfect match, that symmetrical sort of interface, the end result being that everything runs smoothly, no complications, no disruptions. If you don't use a broker, then you as the seller are only thinking of one thing, and that is everything you need to do to sell based on your desires, not the buyer's desires. And that, in the end result, will either terminate the sale, disrupt the sale, or get you lesser price. The other complication in all of that is your negotiation. Are you a professional negotiator in business sales? You might be good at what you do, selling cars. You might be great at selling cars. When it comes to a business sale, can you actually work that between buyer and seller to negotiate a higher price? You don't want a lower price, you want a higher price or a fair price. And one of the other points that I always say to people is, if I'm a buyer and I ask you, Jeremy, you're selling to me, we're doing it one-on-one, buyer-seller, and I say, Jeremy, tell me all about your particular staff turnover that you've had recently and how that's affected your income. And you can either give me three responses in that one question I've asked you. You can tell me the truth straight away. Might be all sorts of complications. Two, you can sort of go, well, I'd rather not say, so immediately I'm suspicious. Or three, you can tell me porky pies, which I'll find out later to be porky pies, in which case I won't buy either. So of those three responses that you have as choice, you can't defer any of them. If you said to me, oh, I'd like to come back to you on that, again, my response to you as the seller would be, Jeremy, you seem a bit hesitant on that. That's exactly what you don't want with a seller and a buyer interfacing together. As a professional broker, they ask me that question. Tell me about Jeremy's business and, why it's doing so well and the staff love it and they've been there for 20 years. I can say, well, let me just defer that. I'll go and find out because I don't know the exact reason. I'll ask Jeremy and I'll come back with a properly weighted and favoured response. So we've got time to respond. We can defer the question and respond. As a seller, you can't do that. You've got to give them an answer. And as I said, out of those answers, you've really only got three choices. Tell them the truth, tell them a lie, or sort of fluff it around. And two of the three responses, probably three of the three responses, aren't going to be what you want to do. You want to have time to consider that response. You can't do that. You can't say, oh, I'll think about that and I'll come back to you. Because the buyer's saying, well, what's the problem? Why have you got to think about it?
That's right.
So from that aspect alone, it will give you the better opportunity to generate more buyers. There's no doubt about that. But buyers that will come all the way through and go through to a contract stage as opposed to drop off, because people, when they enter the process of buying, look for excuses to withdraw more than they look for excuses to buy. They look for things like, oh, he's a bit hesitant about that, or he's a bit vague about that, or he's avoiding that one, and oh, no, I don't like that. That's why it's important to have a broker that can handle those objections, know everything about the business, and say, oh, Jeremy, I'll come back to you on that one because I need to confer with the seller and just find that information out. I understand a little bit of it, but I like to get the full story before I come back to you and respond. In other words, what are we going to do here? How are we going to phrase it? But you won't accept that if that's the seller saying that. Oh, look, I'd like to see how I'm going to respond to you on that one. I'll come back to you on that one. You're going to walk away. So.
Absolutely. Great advice. Any other advantages before we move on to the next topic?
Negotiation is always the big advantage, but I mentioned that. But negotiation is something that needs to be determined in conjunction with special conditions for the contract as well. You're not experienced, you are in particular, but as a buyer, you're not experienced in negotiating special conditions. And the special conditions, although you put them into the contract in a sense, I've got to negotiate those. So I've got to talk about the terms of special conditions. Most sellers have got no idea about special conditions, and they'll just say, yeah, okay, you buy, and then all these special conditions come out at the last minute, and there's complications. You and the other lawyer get together, you start fighting over issues and points, and the end result is the sale will fall through. So you need someone that understands the special conditions before you get there, as well as negotiations. So that's why you use.
It comes back to one of my favorite phrases: you don't know what you don't know, and that's why you need to get professional advice so that you can see those blind spots, or someone else can see the blind spots that you don't see yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, even the ones we've done together in terms of business sales, the complications that arise even after you think you've done all the work. Can you imagine letting the buyer and the seller get together and work that out before you? There'd be no chance. You wouldn't have had a sale. Just get them through.
There's probably a whole show of war stories that we could go through, but we won't do that today. Well, let's change the pace a bit and go into the future. So a topic about the future. So there's obviously a lot of disruption in your industry, and most other industries have got that. What do you see as the biggest challenges in the commercial broking space in the next, say, 5 years?
I think social media is the biggest challenge, and probably the greatest threat to professionalism, in that the more information, the more social media opportunities, buyers and sellers think they know more. Buyers and sellers think they know everything there is to know because they're reading it, and they probably do glean a lot from the internet and social media and how this happens and how that happens, and even podcasts like we're doing now. And all of that goes into a package that gives them the unrealistic expectation they can do it themselves, or they know everything and they know how to do it without assistance and professional assistance. So I think the misunderstanding that being able to have all the information at your fingertips is going to impact adversely on the commercial selling and business selling world. And we will have the instance of buyer and seller trying to do a deal themselves, to the detriment of price, detriment of special conditions contracts, and the detriment of a lot of things. But it's inevitable. You know, the more you know, or they think you know, the more you try.
And but one of the reasons we do this is to show people that you don't know what you don't know. And whilst it's great, you can learn lots of information, you still need to go and get the right advice so that you can see those blind spots. Or someone else can see those blind spots that you don't see.
Oh, look, it's a bit like, you know, if I was up on a, heaven forbid, but if I was up on a murder charge, would I represent myself, or would I get the best criminal lawyer to represent me? I could go and read for, what is it, a year or two before you actually have to go to court, so to speak, but I could read up about it for a year or two. Would I feel confident representing myself in a murder trial? Might be the end of my life. I mean, no way in the wide world. I would get the best professional advice I could get, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. You need to get the best advice you can get and you can afford, because the end result is you only get one opportunity.
And that's a great segue into our next question, because I'm just going to put a disclaimer. Warwick has no plans to murder anyone. That was a joke. But the question is, what's next on the horizon for you?
Murder someone? No. I was just going to the extreme as an example.
I know. I'm just playing.
The horizon for me, as you grow in professionalism and as the market grows, I find that there is more need for my services at the upper end of the market than running with the also-rans. I mean, the small businesses are great, but a lot of the small businesses have difficulties. The larger businesses require more professionalism in selling them. They don't have as many difficulties, or if there are difficulties, they're more professional difficulties, more so than, I've pocketed all my cash and put it under the table. So I've been moving from a layman's business broking market broker to a more professional upper end, middle to upper end professional business broker, where I guess the example would be I deal with corporations rather than businesses. And I've moved, and I see myself moving to dealing with corporations, not businesses. Even though I'm a business broker, the corporations depict more the end result of what I'm trying to achieve. So that's a target market of $2 million or more in business sales. And I've got quite a few on the go, or potentially on the go, in excess of 5 up to 15, 16 million.
Wow,
and
that's great.
Those businesses need my services probably more so than just the smaller end of the market, because there are a lot of complications at that end that a professional will be able to deal with more so than the average business operator at the other end.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. That's excellent. Well, it's good to hear, and I'm sure that you'll get lots of good businesses in that. So let's move into my favourite round. And you didn't do this last time. I wasn't doing quick fire questions last time you were on. So quick fire questions. I'm going to ask you a quick question. Just tell me the first thing that comes into your mind. All right. So we've just got 2 for you today. What is the number one thing that you see people get wrong in business in general? So just, that's comparing to the earlier question about business sales. I'm talking about in business in general. What do people get wrong in business?
Most people are comfortable with buying a business and getting into it, but they never seem to operate it successfully. Very few businesses have a successful track record of operation. It's usually trial and error. And the successful operators, obviously, they're the ones that build a big business from a little acorn. It grows to a big oak tree. But operation, I think, which is how to run it successfully week after week, month after month, year after year, how to grow it, how to satisfy the employees, how to make profits, how to penetrate your markets, how to manufacture your goods and get people to buy your product. Operation is the toughest part. Keeping it successfully operating, not just starting it up and not just maintaining it, but keeping it operating, growing and successfully producing what it is you set out to achieve when you first bought that. Great. And that's what most people find it the most difficult to do, and that's where they need professional help.
Excellent. All right. So the second one and last one is, if you could give advice to your younger self, what would that advice be?
Well, starting this game earlier. I started in this business 18 years ago, but I didn't realise probably until the last 5 or 6 years that professionalism at the top end is limited. And there is almost no competition. In other words, the demand exceeds the competition that I have to work it. So I find very few people going in against me when I go in to talk to a client. I find very few people want to come in and take that business away from me, as it happens in residential real estate. People are always knocking on the door. The moment you put a sign up out the front of residential real estate in a house, you've got 15 agents all ringing to try and get the listing. I don't have that competition anymore. I find the more professional the market, the less the competition from others in my industry, because I know they can't work it. But it is a more satisfying job doing a professional outcome than it is just doing a run-of-the-mill, day-to-day type outcome. So I would start earlier. I would have got into this game 30 years ago. I would come out of uni, got trained up, done a quick course, and bang, I would have been into this.
But you wouldn't have all the experience that you had from your past jobs as well. So.
I know, but I would have done it from trial and error.
Very good. Very good. Well, we'll come out of the quick fire. I just got like 2 final questions. Is there anything that we've missed that you think is important that you want to get across to people today in our TV show and podcast?
I think, look, everyone's different. I think the main thing is that if you were to put a business or require selling a business in the marketplace, the best point to consider is, have I got the skills myself to be able to do it? And if I haven't, and the answer should be in 99% of them, no, I haven't got the skills to sell the business myself, I will seek professional help. And that professional help needs to be assessed. They need to not just accept what someone says, but they need to investigate what that person's saying they can do for them. So if a broker comes in and says, yes, I can sell your business, find out what they've sold, how they've sold it, how much do they want to know about the business beforehand. If they can list it in 2 weeks, then they're not the type of person you want. Yep. If they're going to do a professional investigation before they list it and they've got a history, recommendations and all that, then that's wonderful. They're probably the type of people you want. But I can't emphasise it enough that professionalism in selling a business is what is needed to get you the best price, the optimum sale, the least complications and least difficulties. So
great. That's
what it's all about.
Excellent.
Go and get a professional to sell your business.
Excellent. Excellent advice.
To help you in a murder case.
Email us today if you've got any. We don't do criminal law, but we know people who do.
I couldn't use you. I'd have to go to the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, don't use me for that.
I know you're the best in business contracts.
Business stuff is fine, but don't use me for criminal law. That's my number one tip out of today. So final question is, where can people reach you if they'd like to discuss anything further from the show today?
Ray White Business Sales. They're on the website. If you look up Ray White Business Sales, I'm one of 16 in Australia that actually is an accredited broker. But Ray White, North Coast Central is the office. It's from Sunshine Coast all the way down to Brisbane, if you like, in terms of penetration of market. So if you just look up Ray White, Warwick Peters at raywhite.com, you will find me. You'll be able to get in contact with me. Happy to answer your questions, and you don't have to have a multi-million-dollar business for me to be able to help you. I'm happy to just have a chat over the phone and see if I can answer whatever questions you might have or complications, put you in the right direction.
Excellent. Well, we'll link some of those up in our show notes. Warwick, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And thank you for being our first repeat guest on Business Legal Lifecycle TV and the podcast.
That's a pleasure, Jeremy. Thank you very, very much for putting me on there and having the faith in my abilities to be able to come in and do a presentation. Thanks, mate.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. I hope you got a lot out of that interview with Warwick Peters. As I said at the beginning, we previously did an interview with Warwick in show 16 about protecting intellectual property and the importance of that, getting your business ready to sell. Today's interview, as I said, goes through more about the selling process, and also we delve into the future. And I love Warwick's comments and answers to the quick fire questions, which we didn't put him through last time. Craig, do you want to conclude?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we thank Warwick for his time. We really appreciate anyone that's willing to come on and share some excellent advice for our listeners or viewers and giving up that time. So thanks, Warwick. As always, remember to like the video on Facebook or Periscope or YouTube or wherever you might be watching or listening to this. The show notes will be available. That's on businesslegallifecycle.com.au/073, which is episode 73. So if you want to review the notes, get on there and have a look at those. We'll be back again on Monday for Fast Fix Monday, so we hope you can join us then. See you later, everyone.
Bye, everyone.